held in the Community Education Unit here at 6971 Abbots Road, Grangemouth, and a lot of people you'll probably see are remote online there. In accordance with Section 43 of the Local Government in Scotland Act 2003, it has been directed that this meeting will be conducted in such a manner as to allow remote attendance by elected members. This meeting will also be live streamed. The first part of the business says apologies. Have any apologies intimated?
Thank you, Convener. I've got a microphone that works now. We have apologies submitted by Councillor Redmond. Thank you.
Convener, could I also submit apologies on behalf of Councillor Colley, please? She intimated to me earlier on today that she would no longer be able to attend this evening's meeting.
Good. That's noted. That takes us on to item 2 on the agenda, which is declaration of interest. And just for clarity, I will read this out. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Have we any declarations of interest at this time? None intimated. That takes us then to item 3, which is predetermination hearing procedures. I'm going to pass over to Mr. Ian Henderson, Legal Services Manager. Before I do that, I'm just going to read out in terms of the reasons for this committee consideration. A predetermination is required for an application for a major development that is significantly contrary to the development plan. Thereafter, consideration of the application by the Council's Planning Committee is required. This development proposal is considered significantly contrary to the development plan owing to the scale of the proposed housing out with the Ayr Village limit within the countryside. And just to highlight, at this stage of the meeting, no decision is taken here tonight. I'm going to pass you on now to Mr. Ian Henderson, Legal Services Manager, to go through the determination hearing procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I think my colleague will share slides on screen. Thank you. Can we move to the next slide, please? So first of all, the Convener will ask the Planning Officer to give a presentation of the report relating to the application before the committee. And then the Convener will invite the applicant or their agent to speak to the application, and they will be allowed 10 minutes to speak. The Convener will then also ask any statutory consultees to speak in relation to the proposal, each of which would be normally entitled to speak for up to 5 minutes. At that stage, members of the committee are then able to ask questions of the applicant, their agent and the statutory consultees, and may also seek advice from officers on any matter. Thank you. At that stage, the Convener will then invite parties that have submitted representations, and that includes objectors or supporters, to speak to the terms of their representations that they submitted in response to the notification of the planning application. Each party will normally be permitted to address the committee once for up to 5 minutes. It's important to note that, so as to avoid repetition, where parties have a similar interest and perhaps could speak as a group, a spokesperson for the group would be invited to address the committee, and in those circumstances, the party would have 10 minutes to address the committee. The Convener may limit the number of speakers addressing this hearing on any particular topic, or may curtail any speech which repeats a matter which has already been the matter of discussion before the committee. At that stage, in the interests of procedural fairness, the applicant or their agent will have a right of reply to any points that have been raised by any party heard at that point by the committee. And members of the committee will then be invited to ask questions of anyone that's spoken to the committee, or again to seek guidance from officers on any factual or legal matters. Thereafter, members of the committee may identify any other planning matters that they wish to see addressed in the report to the meeting of the committee that will consider the application. The convener will thereafter close the predetermination hearing. It's important to note that no cross-examination will be permitted during the course of the meeting, and all remarks must be directed via the convener, whose decision on any matters of order will be final. If anyone has intimated that they wish to attend the meeting but fails to appear at the meeting, the committee may proceed with the business without hearing that person. It's also important to note that the convener of the meeting will be responsible for ensuring it's conducted efficiently and also having due regard to the principles of natural justice. Thank you. And lastly, it's important to note that no decision on the application will be taken at this meeting, and a report will be presented by officers at a future meeting of the Planning Committee. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Before we bring in Mr. Vivian to come forward with the report, I just say that we have a number of attendances here this evening, both here and remote. So for clarity, I'll read this out. We have Councillor Buchanan and Councillor Kelly. We have Provost Robert Bissett, Councillor Gary Bowes, Councillor Jim Flynn, Councillor Gordon Forrest, Councillor James Kerr, Councillor Laura Murtagh, Councillor Alan Nimmo, apologies to Councillor Redmond as well as Councillor Colley, and Councillor Ian Sinclair. We also have a confirmed attendance from Jacqueline Barrett, who's the agent, who will be online, and Officers Flood and Protection Unit Gary McGregor, Roads Development Officer Craig Russell, Housing and Strategy and Private Sector Karen Strang, and Alistair Shaw, Strategic Planning, who will be online. Confirmed attendances that we have so far, and there's still to be before they have an opportunity to come forward. We have Earth Community Council, Joan Anslow, convener of Earth Community Council, and Bob Smith, Secretary Earth Community Council. We have Scotland's Garden and Landscape Heritage, Matthew Bennins. We have Transport Planning Unit, Graham Lowe from WSP, attending on behalf of TPU. The objectors in the list that we have so far is SGN Plant Location Brian Young, objector. Miss Diane Davidson, 22 Douglas Avenue, Air Falkirk, objector. Mr. Derek Forrest, 9 Carthew, Air Falkirk, objector. Miss Diane Fullerton, 11 Kennedy Way, Air Falkirk. Mr. Graham Henderson, 12 Douglas Avenue, Air Falkirk. Mrs. Shona Laurie, 8 Douglas Avenue, Air Falkirk. Mrs. Rachel McInnes, 22 Castle Drive, Air Falkirk. And Miss Jane Webster, Crossview, 37 High Street, Air Falkirk. We also have a confirmed attendance for a Mr. John Bell, a supporter, 64 Elphinstone Crescent, Air Falkirk. Officers also in attendance is Ian Henderson, Legal and Procurement Manager, Jack Frawley, Team Leader, Community Services, Ian Dryden, Development Manager, Growth and Planning and Climate, Brent Vivian, Planning Officer, Gemma MacArthur, Committee Officer, and Richard Broadley, Planning and Environment Manager. When it comes to an opportunity for public representation, for those that have made representation, then I'll read out for the list as they are. If people aren't here, well, they've had their opportunity to attend. The next part of the meeting tonight is item 4 on our agenda, which is the construction of visitor centre to include information, exhibition space, arts and craft workshop, restrooms, cafe and retail area, and up to 82 dwelling houses and associated works at land to the west of Brackenbear House, Cemetery Road, Airth, for Mr. George Russell. For members, it's pages 5 to 82 in your agenda papers, and the report is by Mr. Brent Vivian, who is online. Mr. Vivian, thank you.
Thank you, convener. As the convener said, this application is a major development and seeks planning permission in principle for the construction of a visitor centre and up to 82 dwelling houses. Dwelling houses are intended as enabling development to cross-fund provision of the visitor centre. Essentially, this is a repeat application of a 2021 application which was refused by the Planning Committee in January 2023. Members will recall from previous site visits that the site lies to the west and northwest of the village of Earth. Dunmore Park, which contains the Dunmore Pineapple Architectural Folly, lies further to the northwest, and the site comprises open agricultural land. The area proposed for the visitor centre is within a field between the Pineapple and East Lodge, west of the A905 and north of the B9124. The area proposed for the housing extends southwards from the B9124 on rising land on the escarpment above the village. This area forms part of a number of larger fields.
Apologies just now, Brent, but is there any opportunity of you maybe raising the volume of your computer up, because I think it's quite difficult to hear you. I don't know how members of the public feel there. Can you hear them very well? Okay.
Okay, I've turned up the volume. Is that better?
It's
Right.
fine
Oh.
online, convener. It's maybe in where you are that the problem is.
I've turned the volume up, so I'll carry on. I'll try and just speak a bit louder as
Well, if
well.
you just hold a minute, what we'll do is we'll ask members of the public just to come forward to those seats there then. That brings you a wee bit closer. Okay? That's fine. Apologies, Brent. Okay, but it's important that everybody hears you. Thank you.
Shall I continue now? So as I said, the current application is essentially a repeat application. However, the current application does provide for a variety of house types, sizes, and tenures to support a balanced community. Members will recall that the previous application was for a bungalow house type only. Jack, if I could ask you to bring up the indicative master plan, please, for the current application. Thank you. So there are a number of other changes from the previous application, which are shown on the new indicative master plan. There's larger green spaces, including areas for biodiversity enhancement and a central play area, Mugga. If you just bring it up slightly more, Jack, that's it. That shows the location of the play space, Mugga, centrally located. And if you scroll back towards the visitor centre, the new roundabout is recited within the master plan to allow for a fourth arm and a consolidated road layout. The previous application included a 3-arm roundabout and realignment of the B9124 around the northern edge of East Lodge. However, since that time, the applicant has acquired East Lodge, which provides an opportunity to realign the B9124 more directly to the new roundabout junction. The changes to the road layout allow the proposed visitor centre to be sited further south within the agricultural field. And the new master plan also shows the provision of an outdoor activity and garden space adjacent to the visitor centre in response to feedback received during the public consultation. Thank you, Jack. The consultation responses are summarised in section 4 of the report and are generally similar to those received for the 2021 application. Although it can be noted that National Trust for Scotland, who own the Pineapple site, have not objected to the current application, whereas they objected to the 2021 application. I would highlight some of the consultation responses as follows. The Council's Roads Development Unit retained pedestrian safety concerns as the existing footway on the east side of the A905 is narrower than the National Roads Development Guide requires, and some parts of the footway remain unlit. And for pedestrians to access the visitor centre from this footway would require crossing the A905 at an uncontrolled crossing point. The Council's Transport Planning Unit have noted the relatively remote location of the site to the village centre and consider that the relatively remote location of the proposed visitor centre coupled with the proposed pedestrian access arrangements, are unlikely to encourage a significant proportion of visitors to access the site on foot. They are also concerned that the proposed housing is not well served by bus services, and a significant proportion of the new residents would be unlikely to be encouraged to travel to and from the site by bus. This is due to the walking distance to the bus stops and the service only being a Monday to Saturday hourly service at present. The Transport Planning Unit have also requested further information to demonstrate that the principle of the proposed roundabout design is suitable in capacity terms, and a response to this matter is awaited from the applicant. The Coal Authority have advised that their records indicate that a recorded mine entry is present roughly centrally within the housing area of the site. Its position is not shown on the indicative master plan drawing, and it is therefore unclear whether the presence of this feature and its implications for the site layout have been considered by the applicant. Historic Environment Scotland have advised that the proposed visitor centre would have a direct impact on the Dunmore Park garden and design landscape, and would change the character of this part of the estate from open agricultural fields, which have been in place since the late 19th century, to a new building and car park. It would also alter the road layout and the designed approach via the East Lodge to the Pineapple. Historic Environment Scotland consider that these changes would have a negative impact on the character of the design landscape, and furthermore would divorce the lodge from its context and diminish the experience and understanding of this important historic asset to the estate, particularly as this is the main route to the Pineapple. However, Historic Environment Scotland recognise that this agricultural area has a greater capacity to absorb change than other parts of the design landscape, such as the inner policies around the Pineapple. For this reason, Historic Environment Scotland do not consider that the impacts would be such to raise any issues of national importance, and they do not object to the application. But they do recommend that mitigation for adverse impacts is considered where possible, which could include, for example, further consideration of the proposed new road layout and its impact on the B-listed East Lodge. National Trust for Scotland have advised that they have had various discussions with the applicant and their agent, who have satisfied them that the size and scale of the proposed visitor centre have been reduced and that access would be improved to allow pedestrians to walk from the visitor centre to the Pineapple. There are no plans for any partnership with regards to the operation of the visitor centre. Falkirk Council Children's Services have advised that Earth Primary School is anticipated to have sufficient capacity to accommodate the pupils from the proposed development. A financial contribution is requested to help address capacity issues at Larbert High School. NHS Forth Valley have not identified any healthcare capacity issues and have therefore not requested a financial contribution. The Earth Parish Community Council support the application in principle, subject to certain assurances. The reasons for supporting the proposal are outlined in paragraph 5.1 of the report, and the assurances they seek are set out in paragraph 5.2. A total of 286 public representations have been received in relation to the application. These consist of 195 objections and 91 representations in support. The matters raised in the representations are summarised in paragraphs 6.2 and 6.3 of the report. The relevant policies of the development plan are set out on pages 27 to 67 of the report. And it can be noted that the development plan now comprises Falkirk Local Development Plan and National Planning Framework 4. As members will be aware, an application is to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The material considerations in this case include Falkirk Council supplementary guidance, the consultation responses, the public representations, the planning history of the site, and the changes in circumstances since determination of the previous application. The changes in circumstances since determination of the previous application include: National Planning Framework 4 was adopted on the 13th of February 2023 and became part of the development plan on that date. The applicant has acquired Category B listed East Lodge. This provides an opportunity to connect the B9124 realignment more directly to the new roundabout junction. National Trust for Scotland have not formally objected to the current application. They have, however, reiterated that there are no plans for any partnership with regards to the operation of the visitor centre. And lastly, Erith Parish Community Council support the proposal in principle, subject to certain assurances. They took a neutral stance in considering the previous application in 2021 because they were unable to arrange a public meeting due to the pandemic and COVID-19 restrictions in place at the time. In summary, this report provides factual and background information in relation to the proposed development, and no planning assessment of the application is included or implied in the report. A full assessment of the planning issues will be presented in a subsequent meeting to the Planning Committee in due course. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Mr. Vivian. You'll be aware that you're on standby for any questions from members later on during this meeting. It's an opportunity now for the agent of the applicant to come forward. Originally it was Jacqueline Barrett. We believe that's been changed now to Mr. Farrer. Are you there, Mr. Farrer? Mr. Farrer's there. Would you like to take a seat over there, sir? If you just press the button when you're ready to go and you've got 10 minutes. Okay? Bring it quite close to you so everybody can hear you because of people online as well.
Thank you, Convener. Is that loud enough? Clear? Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to present the case and background to the Erith application. The application for Erith comprises a visitor centre and associated housing and forms a repeat submission, presenting a significantly amended scheme to that presented to the Planning Committee in January 2023. The application provides an amended set of proposals that have been subject to full and detailed consultation and engagement and have been updated to reflect the feedback from those consultations and the new national policy on placemaking about promoting sustainable place, sustainable living, and bringing forward the National Planning Framework NPF 4, which was adopted in February 2023 and now forms part of the development plan. NPF 4 fundamentally supports more livable, more sustainable, more productive places, and this recognises the change and challenge of settlements and the need for places and indeed lifestyles to change to support sustainability, create more resilient communities, and address climate change. In our view, the proposals will help make Erith a stronger community, creating jobs, homes, including affordable homes and homes for those with restricted mobility, adding footfall that supports demand for local goods and services, and delivers a visitor centre that builds on Erith's heritage and local history and the attractions of the Dunmore Park Estate and the Pineapple. Much of the work that I do is in placemaking, working with councils and communities to create local place plans, and typically those are strongly aligned or try to retain local services, whether those be shops, cafes, bus services, create local jobs, and ensure people have access to local jobs, especially those for young people. Sustain strong community activity, both through facilities and by connecting up communities. And a lot of that we refer to in planning jargon, if you like, as 20-minute neighborhoods, and trying to build communities which are sustainable. The earth application includes many of these elements. The application has worked very closely with local residents, stakeholders, and the Community Council in order to reshape the proposals. Amendments have been made to extend the benefits and to minimise any key impacts of the scheme. And I'll just run through some of those changes. Brett's already referred to them in his report. There's a commitment to deliver the visitor centre in phase 1. So the visitor centre will be delivered and operating within the first phase of this development to ensure that the key community benefits are front-loaded. This also demonstrates the support for the Falkirk-wide tourism objective, the tourism policy paper, capitalising on existing tourist attractions and maximising their benefit to local communities. Other changes we've referred to include the relocation of the visitor centre to enable the exhibition space to act as the gateway to the heritage site, and including and adding additional outdoor and garden space facilities which are a response to consultation, comment and feedback. The proposals amend and improve the access, and that's been secured through land acquisition. The applicant has acquired additional land at the East Lodge to protect the existing woodland belts and natural habitat, and it's allowed a 4-leg roundabout to improve the road alignment and safe access and to provide the space for the appropriate buffers. In addition, in terms of transport planning, it is now proposed to remove all the agricultural traffic from Black Avenue in response to comments received from the public consultation, and the applicant will provide an alternative agricultural access to the Earth Mains farm prior to the construction, and that same route will be used for the construction vehicles during the period of construction. The master plan and the development of the master plan has extended the variety and type of housing types. We're looking to create a good mix of housing types to cater for a diverse range of local need, and that includes 25% affordable, and 10% of the houses are designed with full wheelchair accessibility. Within the wider environment, additional buffers have been provided to protect and enhance the natural environment. Those include large green spaces, which cover approximately 5 hectares of the site. Almost a third of the site is down to green space, which is both for people and biodiversity enhancement. And the proposals will create new diverse habitats and biodiversity with a positive ecological and biodiversity gain for the site. Finally, in terms of changes, the developer has made an offer of a contribution to a community fund. The applicant will make further contributions into a community fund by providing £200 per house completion following the sale of each house. And that's really just to support smaller community activity and the sorts of little local initiatives that happen within strong communities, whether that's the different groups or whether that's an upgrade to a park or a small facility. The proposed development aligns with the key principles of National Planning 4 in seeking to create high quality, sustainable and livable places while supporting rural revitalisation and creating economic and community benefits through tourism. National Planning 4 recognises the planning process is seeking to develop long-term sustainable solutions and stronger communities and stronger places. And the proposals align with the National Planning 4 objectives of local living, providing a modest extension to the existing settlement that will make Airth a stronger, more sustainable and more attractive place to live, work and indeed visit. The provisions of the visitor centre will provide opportunity for the whole community to celebrate Airth's heritage and links with the pineapple, and provide a much needed upgrade to the existing local facilities associated with that site, whilst also providing local employment and training and creating a new heritage-based destination, both for Airth and across the Forth Valley. Proposals will be constructed and family run by a local developer. So the applicant will be the owner-occupier of the cafe and visitor centre. And for the past 10 years, they have operated a successful cafe at Suit Remains in Midlothian and look to build on similar successful models like the cafe at Canada Wood or the Smithy at Blair Drummond. As previously noted, the applicant is a local developer. The applicant will continue to work with all the residents, stakeholders and local groups to listen, engage and work to resolve issues and provide the strongest benefits for Airth whilst minimising construction impact. Ultimately, this application is a combination of both the benefits, I suppose, and the value of it is a combination of both the visitor centre, enabling housing, and the quality and commitment within the proposals that will help to build a stronger place and help to sustain the local economy, the local community, and make Airth a great place to live and work and visit. Thank you. That's
Okay,
it.
you just keep a seat there, because what happens at this stage is this is an opportunity, because you did your summary, it's an opportunity for members of the committee, both here and remote, to ask any questions. Okay, so question, Councillor Forrest. I think you're mute,
Sorry,
Councillor
convener,
Forrest.
I think Councillor Nimmo was before me.
Well,
convener.
it doesn't matter. You carry on, Councillor Forrest.
Okay. Okay, right,
For
thank you.
plenty of time.
Okay, thanks. In the original application, subject to our questions, we discovered that there was a restriction on the age of people who could purchase and live in these homes that were planned there. There was a bit of controversy and that was subsequently dropped. However, although I see that in page 16, 4.19, that Falkirk Council has got allowance for children, and that there is now an area of play put aside within the visitor centre for children, I don't see the actual confirmation that you haven't actually went back on the age group restrictions. Could I just have that verified, if you wouldn't mind?
On you go.
I can confirm there's no proposal to limit or restrict the age in terms of residents within the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. I also note that it's now wheelchair adaptable, etc. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Forrest. Councillor Nimmo.
Convener, I really just want to make you aware of a potential issue. I've just checked the YouTube channel that this meeting's been broadcast for the benefit of the public. There's no picture and the sound is very limited. So if officers could maybe investigate that, I would hate to think we end up getting complaints because there's no picture. Thanks.
Okay, what we'll do is, because of that problem, we'll have a 10-minute recess. No, have we got it fixed, have we?
Thank you, Convener. My apologies to the meeting and to the members of the public who are experiencing the meeting through the live stream, and thank you to Councillor Nimmo for raising this matter. Due to some technical issues with the hard equipment here, the solution with the audio broadcast is the only available option at the moment, but I can give an assurance that the recording, which is also made of the meeting, will be uploaded to the YouTube channel as soon as practicable after the meeting, and so there will be that visual element to look back on if people wish to view the proceedings at a later date.
So it's audible at the moment.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Nimmo. Anything else at this stage?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make you aware of that, convener.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Councillor Flynn.
Yep, thank you, convener. Just a couple of questions. One was to confirm or reconfirm, what number of people would be employed, one in the construction phase if this was to be agreed at a later stage, and two as permanent employees in the visitor centre stroke cafe. That was my first question.
Mr. Parra, you want to answer that?
I don't have those figures with me. I could supply them to you. Off the top of my head, I don't recall the numbers that are in the construction phase.
Okay, but we would require them because that's quite an important issue. Councillor Flynn, carry on, sir.
Yep, the second question really is, I sort of half know the answer, but I'd like confirmation because it's quite a long development, again, if it was agreed. Can I have confirmation that there's not likely to be any approach to provide a through road from the development and into Castleview and down that way?
Mr. Parra?
I can confirm there's no intention to provide a through road.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, convener. That's all.
No, thank you, Councillor, for your input. I'm looking round the table for any other questions at this stage to the agent. Councillor Nimmo, Councillor Kerr, yes, I see you there, sir. You have a question, Councillor Kerr?
Yeah, convener, thank you. Mr. Farrar, or Professor Farrar, the roundabout, the initial planning was without a roundabout. Would the site manage with an ordinary junction?
We've looked at a series of configurations for that junction and are still in dialogue with your roads and technical services. Our belief is that the roundabout best meets the Falkirk Council road standards and design layout, and that's what we proposed. If it was possible to deliver a satisfactory solution to your roads officers, then we would be perfectly happy with an amended junction.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Thanks, convener. I'm only raising that point because of the junction going into the new development, it being so close. And I'm just asking for opinions, that's all. But thanks, convener.
Well, thank you, sir. Still any other questions at this stage to Mr. Farrar? None? None? No. Mr. Farrar, you've got an opportunity to step down now. You sit down, but in terms of the hearing procedures, that you'll have an opportunity to reply to any points raised by any party to the committee at a later stage. But we could just retake your seat, sir.
And the two areas of clarification, we should issue those to the planning case officer?
Yes, that's what to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
But remember, take any notes. No new information coming forward, but if anybody comes forward with anything that you would like to respond to, you've all had that opportunity. Okay? Thank you. That takes us to the external consultees now, and first on our list here is Airth Community Council. We'll have a John Anslow, the convener of the Airth Community Council, and a Bob Smith, the secretary of the Airth Community Council. Is any of them here? Is anyone line? I'll just go over that one more time. Ayr Community Council representative John Anslow, the convener Ayr Community Council, and Bob Smith, secretary Ayr Community Council. Are you online? Nope. Okay then, thank you. That takes us to our second, and it is Scotland's Garden and Landscape Heritage, Matthew Benians. Matthew, I see you online there, sir. You have 5 minutes starting from now. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, convener. I'd like to start by confirming I am chair of Scotland's Garden and Landscape Heritage. SGLH we are a registered charity, and our aim is to promote and protect Scotland's historic garden and designed landscape heritage. I'm also a practicing landscape architect, a chartered member of the Landscape Institute with over 25 years experience. The proposed visitor centre is located within the garden and designed landscape at Dunmore Park, and is also adjacent to the Pineapple Garden and Designed Landscape. A garden and design landscape are in inventory sites. Both are inventory sites which are considered to be of national significance. Gardens and design landscapes are consciously laid out for artistic effect. With regard to the location of the proposed visitor centre, whilst welcome, SGLH consider it is too remote from the Pineapple and the walled garden to fulfil the intended purpose of a visitor centre. Mr. Farrer earlier discussed linkages and connectivity to the Pineapple and the walled garden, and I think I would like to understand more about the proposed connectivity between the visitor centre and the Pineapple. In terms of the indicative master plan, by analysing historic maps, notably the first edition OS map series, I don't know if I could share my screen with you. Would that be permitted?
I'd be quite happy with that, as long as you've got the technology here. Carry on.
So I'm sharing the first edition map series from 1860.
You see it?
And if I just zoom out, that shows Dunmore Park, the Pineapple where the cursor is, and the walled garden and the East Lodge. So the application for the visitor centre is roughly located within the policies here, which are greyed. They're greyed out on the first edition to signify the designed landscape. The proposals for the housing are on the hill to the south. The reason for showing this map is it's evident from the historic map that the house is backed by woodland, the home farm is backed by woodland, Elphinstone Tower is concealed within a woodland, albeit it sits on a ridge, and the Pineapple itself is backed by woodland. I'll just stop sharing. So that's quite an important relationship. And I would, having analysed the proposals for the visitor centre, I don't consider that the landscape treatment responds to the historic and wider setting of the concealment and containment of buildings within the Dunmore Park design landscape by the use of woodland and structure planting. I have specific observations regarding the landscape and visual appraisal which accompanied the planning application.
This is your final minute, sir.
Both the visitor centre and the dwelling houses would be visible from within the walled garden, notably from the footpaths around the pond. There is no physical boundary enclosing the south of the walled garden, and if I have a couple of photographs which show that the proposed development would, both the visitor centre and the dwellings would be clearly visible from within the walled garden. And therefore I would question why those locations were not scoped out by the visual appraisal. In particular, viewpoint 4 of the visual appraisal, you can clearly see the pineapple within the woodland from that viewpoint. In conclusion, therefore, it is our opinion that the proposed visitor centre located within the Dunmore Park design landscape would have a detrimental effect on the setting of the design landscape, and in particular when experienced from the pineapple and the setting of the walled garden. We consider that the dwelling houses located on Cemetery Road would also have a detrimental visual effect on the Dunmore Park and the pineapple design landscapes. And therefore we do not support the application for either the visitor centre or the dwelling houses. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, sir, for your submission. There's now an opportunity at this stage for members of the committee to ask this gentleman any questions in relation to the summary that he's just produced. Any questions? Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, convener. Mr. Bennions, I appreciate that the time is short for your presentation. I do hope that you were talking about you had some images and things like that. I probably later on will request from the planning officer that we can see them, because it's something that we found very important when we are deciding planning applications. Brent obviously can then look at them and confirm the validity of them. So I know you didn't get time to do that, but I'm just giving you the heads up that I'm going to request that later. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions direct? No, none at this stage. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for your summary. That moves us on now to the third representation we've been asked for is the Transport Planning Unit. Graham Lowe from WSP attending on behalf of TPU. Is Graham Lowe with us?
I am, convener, although I must confess I wasn't expecting to provide a representation.
Okay. Do you wish to speak?
All I can do is echo Brent's summary of a response, which is just to state that the residential element is relatively remote in relation to the bus services and AIRF itself, and the development is likely to encourage car use. I think that would be all.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for attending. That's the main thing. It's now an opportunity now for objectors. We have a number of objectors, so I'm just going to go through the list. I'm going to read them out, and if you're remote or you're in here, then you'll have an opportunity to take a seat, and then you'll have 5 minutes. So, SGN plant location, Brian Young. Is Brian Young with us, either remote or in-house? Brian Young? No. I know that he's we have received an email, so it has been recorded. Miss Diana Davidson, 22 Douglas Avenue, AIRF. Online or in-house?
Online.
Online, we can hear you. If you just, maybe we can speak up a wee bit. There you are, we see you now, thank you. You've got 5 minutes now, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the proposal suggested that it was going to help make Earth a great place to live and work. But Earth is already a great place to live, and part of that is the path networks around the village. And the main one of those, certainly with the best views, is the path along the escarpment where the dwelling houses would be built. It talks about in National Planning Framework 4 in Annex D, there's 6 qualities of a successful place. and there's some items listed there, one of which is about promoting healthy lifestyles, which obviously walking and active walking helps with those. And also item 2 about a pleasant environment and providing, allowing people to take inspiration from their surroundings. And I would advocate that the walk along the top of that escarpment is stunning and provides inspiration to many people as they go for their walks around the village. You can see Ben Lomond, so over 40 miles away, the Garganic Hills. If you haven't been there, then please go and have a look. And certainly walking there with those views will be significantly detrimental if actually what you're looking at is people's garden fences and you do not have those amazing vistas which are available for everyone to enjoy. They're a natural resource. They will be irreplaceable if this development goes ahead. And I would urge you just to consider that when you're deliberating on your decisions, whether just deliberate about the view to Ben Lomond as against the view of people's back garden fences. And just that currently you have an invaluable resource in the village, and this will be very detrimental to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. There might be an opportunity for members later to ask any questions. Next on our list is Mr. Derek Forrest. Is Mr. Derek Forrest here? Yes, sir. I think your microphone's on, sir. You have 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you very much.
I'm actually opposed against the application simply because of the increase in the residents. At the moment, the health centre is unable to cope with the numbers. People have to move from Airth along to Ferlin or Cowie to get treatment by the local doctors. It's only open occasionally. That will obviously impact on the health service. I know Forth Valley have said it won't have an impact. I think it will have. And also, my fear is the fact that they say that the footpath's not used a lot, so therefore there won't be an impact. People use the main road regularly for walking, and the increase in traffic from the houses will obviously impact on that. And also, if there is a visitor centre, then they may attend and try and walk to that. Another fear I have is I've known other places where a building has been built and it's been unsuccessful, and it worries me that there'll be nothing on the planning application to stop the visitor centre if it fails being turned into houses. That would be another impact on the village itself, and I don't honestly think that it should go ahead, and I strongly object to the application being granted. That's my views. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you, sir. There will be an opportunity later if members want any questions from you, okay? And I'm just saying once again to the agent that this is your opportunity to take notes, so you'll have an opportunity to, when you're winding up, to discuss anything that's been said, but obviously no new material, okay? Thank you. Okay then, Mr. Forrest, it's now an opportunity for Miss Diane Fullerton. Is Miss Diane Fullerton with us online or in-house? Diane Fullerton? No Diane Fullerton at this stage? Okay, thank you. Mr. Graham Henderson, I see you online, sir. You have an opportunity, sir, for 5 minutes to put forward your objections, starting from now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks, convener, and thanks for having me. Now for the third predetermination hearing over 2 applications for a visitor centre and 82 houses in Airth. The basis for this new application, submitted only 2.5 months after the previous one was rejected, is that there's been a regulation change, so that allegedly justifies a new application so quickly. The impact on the ground is that many of the Airth residents have now been objecting to a visitor centre and 82 houses for more than 3 years, which I can assure you has been a complete frustration and a complete disappointment. The history, we know the history. The proposed building site was considered and rejected through the LDP2 process and was then subsequently refused through the previous planning application last year. The refusal due to the application being contrary to 11 reasons of policy, from which my review appeared to mostly still be applicable. Key reasons for objecting: the land. The roadway at the boundary of the village and onto the Pineapple is used by families, walkers, dog walkers and cyclists, etc. for recreational purposes. Having expansive views to the west towards the Ochil Hills and Stirling, including Stirling Castle, Wallace Monument and further on to Ben Ledi and Ben Lomond in the distance. This land is also used frequently by various animals from roe deer, pheasants, birds of prey and other animals. Again, I cannot emphasise enough how much this land is used currently and how essential it was during lockdown for families looking for outdoor space. Walking between two housing estates will not be the same, and this will be lost. I'd like to go back to the previous predetermination hearing. I thought Brent Vivian put this particularly well during that predetermination hearing when he indicated the concrete road leading to Brackenbar House provides a logical, defensible boundary to the village. The Lucky Homes site is on the village side of that concrete road and is an allocated housing site. In contrast to this proposal, at the moment, the concrete road is at the edge of the village, so it provides a countryside experience with expansive views to the west. So by building on the west side of the road, you're fundamentally changing the character and amenity of that setting from a rural one to a residential. So I felt that this represented the way many residents feel about the application, but put the message across in planning terms. Other reasons: number of people opposed to this application. The current application has 195 objections with 91 supporting votes. Significantly, 165 objections come from within the Airth, Letham and Dunmore area, with only 45 supporting votes, indicating an almost 4-to-1 ratio against the application in the local area. I'd say that 165 objections from the local community was a significant indication of how the residents feel about this application. And I guess just for information, there is also a petition called Hill of Earth on change.org that has around 400 signatures also objecting to this planning application. Other reasons: Larbert High School, currently the most overcrowded school in Scotland and operating at 99% capacity. Having a child at Larbert High School has indicated that the quality of that experience that overcrowding gives you is not a pleasant one. Financial viability of the business. It's our understanding that the cafe is only financially viable as it is the landowner who is proposing to build it. For anyone else trying to run this is not a financially viable business, which leads to the concern that should the cafe ever shut down, not only will we be left with an empty building, but we'll also be left with 82 houses built in the countryside that the majority of the residents did not want. But I guess I'd just like to touch on Airth Parish Community Council as well. We know that the Community Council have chosen to support this application.
Sir, but could you wind up? Your 45 seconds to go. You can wind up, sir. Thank you.
Can do. So we know that Community Council have chosen to support this application. We're disappointed with that decision and wanted to highlight, just for clarity, that this is the view of the 9 members of the Airth Parish Community Council and does not represent the views of the Airth residents collectively. I'm also a bit confused by the stance of the Community Council, as when I read the Community Council guidance notes, it states that the purpose of the Community Council is to ascertain, coordinate and express to local authorities for its area and to public authorities the views of the community which it represents. Well, based on the numbers objecting from within the local area, a supporting vote does not seem to be the case. So just to conclude then, there's a significant number of people opposing this application. The evidence of this is shown in the numbers objecting. Once this land is built on, the views and the surroundings will be gone forever. Let's not let that happen. Thank you, Convener.
Oh, thank you for your input, sir. And all due respect is that we're timious here in terms of the allocation of time for everybody, and we try and be as forthcoming as possible. So I hope you don't think that we're trying to close you down too quick, but you were 6 minutes, you were a minute over your time. Thank you, sir.
No
Okay
problem.
then. Thank you, sir. That's an opportunity now for Mrs. Shona Laurie, 8 Douglas Avenue, to step forward. Is Shona here? Is Shona?
Yes, I am. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, we can hear you.
Lovely.
We can't see, but we can hear you. You carry on. You've got 5 minutes, Shona, starting from now.
I'll be very, very quick because I think Graham has done an absolutely brilliant job in covering certainly all the key points that I would want to raise, and therefore in the essence of time and reiterating those points rather than me going back over them again, I think I would say that I absolutely 100% support the comments that Graham has made, and in particular round about the fact that the objections that were raised through the last process that we went through with regards to this application still continue to be applicable, and therefore I'd ask you to reconsider the reasons why it was rejected at that point, to consider they come back through. And I think equally I'd also endorse the points that Graham has made round about the disappointing way, I think, with the parish council and the way they are representing the views of the village as well. But other than that, I absolutely would endorse everything that Graham has said. So thank you for the time and again giving us the opportunity to represent our views.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we're the planning committee and we can't make any comment in relation to your views on your own community council. That takes us now to Mrs. Rachel McInnes, in-house or online. Would you like to step forward? Thank you very much. Aye, up there. That's it. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes. Carry on.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll not take 5 minutes.
Okay.
I just wanted to say I would agree with the comments that Graham Henderson has made as well in terms of the amenity and the local nature of the area being possibly destroyed by this development. And in terms of the representative of the developer who's talked about sustainability quite a lot, I quite like some more detail on that and how they see this development being sustainable. Is it the design of the houses? Because I doubt very much that anybody or very many people that are actually resident in Earth just now are going to be able to afford those houses. That's perhaps not a consideration for this committee, but in terms of sustainability, the public transport in and out of the village is pretty abysmal. And one of the other people commented on the number of vehicles that are likely to increase coming in and out the village. I think that will be quite substantial as well. And that's really all I would like to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your input. Miss Jane Webster. Miss Jane Webster, online or in-house?
Right. It has been mentioned in regards to the traffic that comes through Earth and the lorries that we get through, and the state of repair of the road is horrific. They did, by the golf course, take up some of the road and they repaired it 4 times, and it caused absolute devastation to try and get through. So is it going to be permanently diverted for the lorries, or are they still going to come through Earth? The public transport that we have, it's an hour, one every hour, not on a Sunday. So is that going to be rectified? Our school, when we moved here in 2012, my youngest was 6 years old and I couldn't even get him into the school. So I had to put him into Carron Primary. So obviously that was then, but the doctors, I can't get a point. I'm not with the doctors in Earth or Fullin. I'm Karen Shaw because I can't get in that practice. It's just, I think it's going to make Earth overcrowded, bring more traffic through to the area and take away that country feel. It's supposed to be semi-rural, and if we're adding more things in, it's going to take away that feeling for me. That's it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just to double check, before we bring the agent back, have we anybody online that's maybe came late? Have we anybody online that's came late? We've got Mr. Bell coming in. Nope. Okay, this is an opportunity now for Mr. John Bell, 64 Elphinstone Crescent, Earth, who's requested to be heard. Mr. Bell, I believe you're there. I see you, sir. You have 5 minutes starting from now. We can't hear you, sir. You're mute. You're still mute.
How's that?
We can hear you now, sir.
Okay, thank you. Right, as someone who's been born and raised in Earth all their life, I wish to add my voice in support of the current plan application proposals for the following reasons. A visitor centre and a cafe will provide a valuable addition to the facilities and services available to residents, as well as provide new employment opportunities. Currently, there is no cafe nor coffee shop in Earth where locals and visitors can enjoy good quality food and drink in a relaxed setting. So this proposal will meet a real need. The plans also show an arts and craft space for use of local groups to both showcase their work and provide workshops to encourage locals to try it out. This is a real benefit for a village already losing community spaces and services. And job creation, the potential to create jobs for the local community, both for construction development and ongoing running of the visitor centre and cafe, is a further benefit to the village. Health and well-being. With regards to many, every community needs to do more to promote, facilitate and encourage more physical activities. The creation of new walking and cycling paths will encourage many to walk or cycle to the centre to the benefit of many in the village. Tourism is now a very important part of the local economy. The more things that are to see and do, the more powerful their combined draw is, encouraging visitors to spend more time and share the wealth over a wider area. The Kelpies and Helix Park and the Falkirk Wheel are currently jewels in Falkirk's crown, but the significance and uniqueness of the pineapple should mean that it could provide a similar pool. It is held back today by poor access, lack of facilities and lack of things to do. A visitor centre development at the pineapple will add another jewel in Falkirk's crown. The visitor centre will be easy to find on a new road with lots of parking, great facilities, information about the buildings and other Falkirk attractions with good food and drink for those who wish to stay a little longer. For the reasons set out in the statement, I ask the Council to allow this much needed development as soon as possible. And I'd just like to add, as someone who goes up to the pineapple twice a day with my mate walking his dog, I meet quite a few different people for all walks of life who's always looking for a cup of coffee or an ice cream in the summertime, somewhere just to sit and relax and chill out. Right, thank you, Convener, very much.
No, thank you, Mr. Bell, for your submission. There's now an opportunity on the hearing procedure for the applicant's agent to step back up to the chair, sir.
John Bell was excellent.
Now, Mr. Farrer, you've got the right to reply to any of the points that was raised or heard by the committee. No new information, but just if you've been sitting there, you've heard the areas of concern in relation to roads, etc., NHS, the school, public transport. I've been jotting them down, so I hope you've been jotting them down and see what you can do to try and placate the individuals and give us some more information for the report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Convener. Without repeating a lot of what I previously said, I mean, the development has been substantially reworked, substantially reshaped, informed through the public consultation and engagement. We held 2 public consultation events within the village, and I'd have to say there was a range of opinion. There were objectors at those meetings as well as supporters, and we talked through all of the detail of those proposals to shape them around either the needs of the village, the concerns of residents, how best we would develop Airth as a sustainable village. Important in that to a whole group of people were the issues around access to housing, the affordable housing mix within this, which is 25% as required by the council, the ability to deliver houses for older citizens with requiring wheelchair access, which are incredibly problematic in rural areas, and the ability to create jobs within the visitor centre. The Community Council, with the weight of opinion within the community, have indicated support, and we held consultation events with the Community Council in the hall in Airth, and we gave a series of presentations and there was a lively discussion. The National Trust for Scotland haven't objected, and we're still working with them to build the connectivity in terms of funding the path network that will upgrade the access to the Pineapple. I genuinely believe that there is a real concern about the level of provision at the Pineapple, the quality of both the access, the car parking, toilet provision, interpretation. Effectively, a lot could be done to enhance that facility. And whilst I respect the views in terms of Matt Bennion and others, I too am a chartered landscape architect. Our team of chartered landscape architects have made evaluations in the requirement of all of the, and we would just have to agree to disagree around how precautionary you choose to be about levels of protection versus what I might call a much more inclusive access to heritage and local heritage that visitor centres and visitor facilities provide. Consultation with NHS Forth Valley and with Falkirk Educational Services has indicated no constrained capacity relative to this number of houses, and that they would see the development as being capable of being met within existing provision, with the exception, as noted by both Brett and others at Larbert High School, where there will have to be a financial contribution from the developer in alignment with all the normal planning policy. I mean, as just a plea, I suppose, as council services become more constrained, as our ability to sustain and maintain all of the requirements within villages and within towns, and the inability for those to be funded through the public purse, development is now the primary support to bring forward either investment, to invest in green space and biodiversity, to invest indeed in terms of bringing forward the requirements, whether it's under schools. And a lady was concerned about the level of bus services or small towns are losing shops. I think there was 8,000 shop closures in Scotland last year. It's footfall that keeps those shops and businesses alive. It's footfall that keeps bus services running. So development contributes, as well as providing its balance. Development contributes to the well-being of communities and the resilience of communities. So I would argue And I do this and with a level of humility because I don't live in Airth Village, but investment, whilst it creates challenge and change, does help to support the tourism economy, will help to bring jobs and homes to Airth, which are much needed in what I would regard as a highly sustainable location, aligned strongly with the national planning framework. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, we just sit there for a minute because I believe that we've been joined by, I think it's Bob Smith, the Secretary of Airth Community Council. Are you there, Bob? Bob Smith? Is it John Anslow? Are you speaking on behalf of the Community Council, sir?
I am convener. Apologies, we couldn't get in. My apologies for our lateness.
Okay, you've got 5 minutes, sir, if you'd like to speak. Thank you.
Right, okay. Thank you, convener. I believe this is the third application from Mr. Russell to construct a visitor centre and summer level of housing at this location. The Community Council have considered each application on their merits and believe the latest plan is a very good plan for Airth and the wider community in Falkirk District. Just to explain our thinking a little, as there have been 3 applications. The first visitor centre plan included, I think it was 23 houses. This was supported by the Community Council as there is a desperate need for facilities for visitors to the Pineapple at this location. I believe further input from Falkirk Council departments meant a redesign was required and a separate application was entered. Unfortunately, the Community Council were unable to consult the people of Airth Parish in a public meeting due to COVID restrictions, so we remain neutral on this second application. The third application has included further community consultations and by chance benefited from land becoming available that improves the general access to the site. This led to another redesign, which the Community Council believes is the best so far. On this occasion, the Community Council was able to carry out a public consultation, which returned a very positive response from the community, including a public meeting where the developer explained all the various parts of the development. Objections were received from people who live close to the proposed new housing and considered over an extended period with the people concerned attending the Community Council meetings. But the Community Council felt the development was very important to Airth and the visitors who come here. That's the conclusion of my statement, convener.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just before you go, have you got anything to respond to as part of the process? You have an opportunity to respond to each speaker. Have you anything to respond to that?
None of the specifics. We had a very good community consultation.
Okay, thank you very much. You can retake your seat, sir. Thank you. Okay. Now, this is the part of the procedure where members of the committee who have been listening to everybody will be invited to question any party heard by the committee or may seek guidance on factual or legal matters from council officers after the presentations. We have heard the presentation both for the objectors and you've now heard from one of the supporters for the Community Council. Any questions at this stage? You can even ask questions about any of the officers here, including Brent, Vivian and any other officers. So this is your opportunity. I'm looking around the room on online. No questions forthcoming. Councillor Kerr.
Just probably a question regarding timescale, convener. If there's, or when would this come back? Whether it's or when would it come to committee?
Aye. Well, we'll ask Mr. Dryden to step in on that one. Mr. Dryden, have you any Any idea when this could come back to committee for decision making?
I think at this time, it's probably still too early to say, but I would say that once we've obviously had time to, obviously following this evening's meeting, any other actions arising, that will depend on what information we need. As officers, we need to go back to the applicant, but there might be points of clarity. All I can say, we'll endeavour to bring this application back at the earliest opportunity. Obviously, it will come to the next available planning committee, whenever that will be. Obviously, as we're now going into May, clearly there's one further committee scheduled for June before the summer recess. Following that, it would be the August committee would be the earliest one after the summer recess. But a lot will depend on any other matters that arise this evening that need to be clarified further. Thank you.
For Dryden. Any other questions, Councillor Kerr, before we bring Councillor Murtagh in?
No, that's fine, convener.
Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, convener. And I think probably in the next stage where we've got questions potentially to come back in the report, I'd get some more clarity from Brent. But is it possible to ask officers questions just now about the way that it's been looked at so far in terms of the design landscape, etc.?
Yes, you have an opportunity to ask any questions.
Okay, so one of the things that keeps coming up, and we hear the word, obviously, pineapple mentioned a lot because of the proximity to the pineapple, although it's not mentioned really within the, the application itself being, it's not a visitor centre connected to the asset of the pineapple, but it does connect in with the core pass. But one of the things which kind of, and obviously I am an Earth resident and I use these paths all the time, but to me, the assessment of whether we're looking at a relationship that is sustainable in terms of the path network, has that been looked at in terms of the whole Dunmore estate? Because to me, it's important for the committee to understand the entire, that this is not just a case of how do we assess whether there's a relationship with the pineapple and whether that's sustainable, but to access the wider path network to Dunmore House, Elphinstone Tower and the wider. So I sort of asked Brent whether although that would make the application, the kind of extensive, environs, the National Trust for Scotland only own a very small part of that pineapple area. So is there assessment of how it fits in sustainably with the wider access to the wider path network around the whole Dunmore estate?
Councillor Mayor, can I just clarify, do you mean in terms of the impact of potentially more people?
Yes.
Coming into the area and using the wider path network?
So it's also because in terms of the landowners that are involved here, the relationship between whether there's an assessment of the wider relationship. Yes, if the National Trust for Scotland are saying that that there's that access, but in terms of the wider ownership of the land and how that would be supported and maintained to make that a sustainable, access route for not just the pineapple but the wider woodland area.
There was a, and you might recall that it was submitted with the last application as well. I think it's been updated. The applicant produced a visitor and natural asset plan which looked at some of the potential impacts on the, on the environment and facilities within the wider landscape, and I think came up with a suite of measures, which I can't recall off the top of my head what they involve, but certainly is something that we can look into and report back to committee when we're preparing the the final report to come back.
Thanks, convener. Through you, Chair. The other aspect, and it's just continue to focus on this historic design landscape, but also the sort of element in the countryside. When we're talking about the sort of visual assessment, it almost feels like to me so far that the visual assessment is almost from the village, what the impact on that village. But in terms of, are we looking at the visual assessment from the direction, for example, of the Moss Road, from the rural situation, looking into the village from the back of the village, and that would include kind of up behind from the direction up behind Letham up towards the Moss Road, to see what the visual impact is from that side, because that is also this whole area as a countryside access area. So has the visual assessment looked at all aspects, or is it just focusing on from like the village out the way?
Is Brent Brent, you going to answer that?
I think we would have to take that away as well, Councillor Murtaugh, covered in the committee report. I mean, there has been a landscape and visual impact assessment prepared, but off the top of my head, I can't remember where the actual viewpoints subject to that consideration were. I mean, the only thing I would point out is there's two aspects to that type of impact. There's the landscape and visual impact, and then there's the more specialist impact in terms of the heritage impact, which is subject to a different assessment through the heritage impact assessment. But obviously we will consider both those assessments submitted and provide our assessment in relation to those reports in the report we bring back to committee.
Convener, moving on, and I think it's just a difficult situation. There's a bit of an elephant in the room in terms of the kind of discussion that's been had between objectors, between supporters, between what's been said in the report and what the Community Council has said. I'm happy if it's a case of officers confirming about the processes in terms of the disparities that are being said, in terms of what objectors are saying about what the community is thinking, and we can see obviously the addresses that are listed in the report and the level of objection from within Earth addresses versus what's being said. And I don't know whether I'm content if the officers wish to say they'll take away and address an assessment of that and what we can gain from that material consideration. But I do feel that there needs to be clarity. I mean, I'd be happy to hear from the Community Council if they want to come back and address that, about how they went about gathering their view as to the community being in favour of the application.
Yep, there's an opportunity now then. We've still got the chap for the Community Council here. Is he here? Still online?
Yes, I'm still here, Convener.
Right, you've heard the questions getting put forward by Councillor Murtaugh. Councillor Murtaugh, have you just like to direct a definitive question to Mr. Anslow, and then we'll get a response from him?
Thanks, Convener. And obviously, I know Mr. Anslow and Mr. Smith very well, and I do a lot of excellent work with the Community Council, who are very active in the community. So I just say that to start with. But I suppose I don't know if you were able to hear previously what the contributions were from those before. So that's unfortunate. I don't wish to put words in the mouth, but essentially there were questions as to the number of objections from within the community that are represented in the report and are represented in other ways, and that at the meeting which you held to gather the community's views, as the reason previously you were neutral, but now you held a meeting, whether there was a vote at that meeting, whether there was a summary of views, whether there was, it seems to be that the developer was at that meeting to give a presentation. So was there an opportunity for members of the public to give their views without the developer there, to be able to do so in freely, or what was the format of the meeting and how was it held?
It was held open session, I believe is the phrase. People came to the meeting. The developer was invited and gave a presentation, a detailed presentation on what was going to happen. And then the floor was open to everybody there to ask questions of the developer and the Community Council. But of course, that was, as you've been to many of the meetings yourselves, the Community Council meetings, we'd had the objectors at the Community Council meetings quite often, and they'd voiced their opinions, and we moved on from there.
And as I say, through your chair, because it seems, I think it was said there was a range of views expressed at that meeting, but the entirety of the Community Council has said that this is a positive thing. So there was no vote taken at that meeting, or was there any summation of the reflection of the wider community? Was that your decision was taken at a separate meeting, effectively?
Yes, it was. There was no vote in the meeting or show of hands at the meeting. Nobody was objecting in the public meeting, I have to say. There were questions asked, but nobody was objecting. Obviously, we don't have the resources of Falkirk Council to arrange votes or consultations. So no, there was no vote at that meeting.
Okay, and just finally, I suppose, so since there were no people in that meeting that voiced objections to the application, the meeting that was held, I think it's believed to be just before Christmas, was it 20th of December? Or there was nobody in the public meeting objected to the application at that meeting.
I certainly don't remember anybody objecting, but we did take minutes, I believe. So we would need to check the minutes.
Okay. I'm grateful for those answers. I think it will be important when it comes to the next stage because it's been told to us a material consideration in terms of the views of the community, etc. So I think I'll probably ask them for some clarity from officers at the next stage. Thank you, Mr. Ansell.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. A really good question, because if you look at the agenda and you look at the report, there's quite a bit in relation to the Community Council. I think it's over 2 or 3 pages, and the submission as well in relation to the meeting that they held. So obviously any more information coming forward before we make the final decision would be imperative, I think. Okay then, have we any other questions from members to anybody here, either objectors, supporters or officers? Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. Just a quick question, and it's really to Brent. There's mention of an online petition, and it says 400, I think it is, names it, but it's really sort of more mentioned by the objectors rather than in the general body of the report. Has that been submitted to the Planning Department?
Brent?
I don't believe so, Councillor Bowes. It's not included in the tally of objections to the application, which is recorded as 195. So my understanding is that doesn't include any reference to the petition, which has been referred to in some of the objections.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sorry if you can't see me. I've just seen a white screen for me. I'm having a wee bit of an IT problem here. I am here, and trying not to put my screen off. Thanks for that. It would be interesting, obviously, that if that was submitted, then you could take out duplications and probably get a better picture overall. But thank you for that, Brent. Thanks for your answer.
Thanks, Councillor Bowes. Okay, I'm asking again, is there anybody else would like to ask any questions of any parties that you've heard, any members of the committee? Are we all happy? Okay. Yeah. Yes, in terms of the procedures before we close the meeting, members of the committee may identify any other planning issues that they wish to see addressed in the report to the meeting council that will consider the application. I think we've already had 1 or 2 issues from Councillor Murtagh that she would like to see addressed, and obviously we've just had a question for Councillor Bowes that may be addressed as well for the report. Councillor Murtagh, you want to wind this up then? What's now?
I think that, and as was mentioned previously, this is now our 3rd predetermination hearing, so actually many of the things that I would have concerns about, I think, have been anticipated. But I do think within the report, a better understanding of the relationship with both the NHS and the school scenario, the primary school and the Larbert High School scenario. So what I would ask of officers really is that the situation with the primary school in terms of outlining what's been considered in the capacity. I think it was mentioned previously that the Ayres Primary School has no capacity to expand. It's a one-stream school, and therefore actually the dynamic is really important, that we understand what is meant by if it's just capacity overall to absorb one large number of children, or how it would play out if you had a lot of children coming in similar age groups. And I think that is important. It was mentioned previously whether that education capacity has looked at the Lochie Holmes site the impact of the Lockheed Home site, which is still being finalised, that being built, and therefore occupation from that site adding into occupancy. So I think information around that would be really critical to the committee to understand what the real impact of an additional 82 houses would be. In terms of the NHS, and it is mentioned within the reports, it'd be good to clarify how the assessment is being made. And I think obviously I have mentioned I'm a local resident, so I, only today tried to book a doctor's appointment that I can only get, 16 days in advance. There has been no concern in the community in terms of what is the real time configuration of constituents coming in, residents being able to register at that practice, or and to outline if there is needing to be those residents registered at, for example, the Stennismuir practice, which is where I first was registered when I came to this village, the relationship that there's no direct public transport to go there. So I think that's really important to understand what is meant by the real impact in terms of the NHS. And again, similarly with Larbert High, which is at 99% capacity and overcrowded. One of the issues is, we know this from our experience at Kinnaird, if it's one thing to provide a contribution, but how can the capacity and the expansion be coped with? So I'd want to understand from education actually what the impact again of other developments that are getting finished in the area that are figured into Larbert High, because it's obviously a serious concern. And as I mentioned during my discussion, I think the wider visual amenity needs to be looked at, so from all directions within Airth, and particularly issues about the historic design landscape. The East Lodge was mentioned a lot, and I'd like to understand what's meant by, I know that this is, the land's been, the property and the land is now in the ownership of the developer, but what is envisaged then in terms of, are they proposing to knock down the East Lodge, or proposing to completely alter the entranceway into that, passageway in? So what is meant by that, and wider consideration of the impact of that in the historical context and in the current access. So I think those are probably my main things that I think are really important to understand for the committee. But if any others occur to me, I might contact planning officers. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Sorry, Provost.
Sorry, another one, right?
Sorry, Convener. Just to pick up on what I was saying, because I didn't add that into this part. It is obviously I feel that it's quite an awkward thing that's been brought up here today in terms of what members of the public that have addressed the committee have said, and some of those members of the committee, those members said that they were at that meeting that was referred to earlier. So I think for officers to outline clearly and investigate what that process was in terms of the public representation, I think that's really important, that members know what that is and have confidence in that, just so that there is clarity. Because if we've been told if it's a material consideration, then we need to know the weight that we need to place on that. So I would ask officers to be clear about what's been brought up this evening, and also what's been brought up in communication that's coming to members of the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your input, Councillor Murtagh. Councillor Bowes, are you wanting in again, sir?
Yeah, this is more about information required. I wasn't sure. I think Laura might have caught it on the end of what she was asking for, but it was something I'd mentioned earlier on. And I appreciate the applicant's view on visual effect. As one of the 3 local members that are on this committee, I know the area very well, and it is an absolutely stunning viewpoint. I think I would like to know, and I suppose, Brett, I would never ever try to suggest what you do, but you've obviously got somebody like Matt Bennions there, obviously taking the applicant's point of view as well. I think one of the strongest things that we have to know about this application is going to be the visual amenity effect. And Laura had sort of touched on it towards the end. I asked if it's possible to speak to Mr. Bennions, who's obviously got special interest in being a part of Scotland's garden and landscape heritage. And obviously qualified as a landscape architect. I would be interested to see that coming back in the final report, because he's obviously got some views. I also appreciate the applicant has also got a similar experience, and it'd be good maybe, Brent, if you sort of got some information from both of them and came up with a reasoned one and suggesting for ourselves what the actual visual impact will be, as well as obviously the heritage impact, as you had mentioned earlier on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowes, for your input. Any other? Councillor Flynn.
Yep, thank you, Convener. Yep, just a couple of things. I did ask a question earlier on of the agent about employment during the construction stage and what full-time employment would be after that. I know that will come back, and I would like it included, obviously, in a future report. But also, more importantly, I'd like to know the economic benefit. I don't know who this will come from, whether it will be Brent or whoever. The economic benefit to Airth and the surrounding area in selling terms on an annual basis from when the visitor centre, if it was agreed, is open, and the houses as well, because there has to be a huge economic benefit, and I would certainly like to know what that amount of money is, please. Thank you.
Pertinent question, sir. Anybody else? Did Councillor Kerr have his hand up? No?
No.
Is that everybody then? Just going round the table and going on. Okay then. First of all, I would like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank all the members of the public that took the time to come and give us their submissions. I'd like to thank all the members, both here and online, and all the officers and the people who have brought questions and sent emails in relation to this application. So, as a convener, I will now be closing this predetermination hearing, and it's already been stated by our legal advisor that there will be an opportunity for this to come to committee, and as Mr Drine has said, we can't give a definitive date as yet. Other than that, the meeting is now closed, and thanks to everybody. Thank you, and a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener.
Thanks,
you,
Chair.
Convener.